You've purchased an instrument, you've installed it or had it installed, you've done the method development on it, you've done the method validation, but now you're 6 months in. How do you know that your system is working day to day, sample to sample, run to run? Well, that's where system suitability comes into play. So we run system suitability to make sure that the system is running properly every single time. It comprises of blanks, standards, samples, and a QC check. Those are the minimums. First, we're going to run a blank. Our blanks are there to ensure that the system is clean and free of contamination and that it's ready to run your sample. It's also an excellent place to measure the noise of that system. Next, we're going to run our standard injections. So our standards should be made up of a concentration that's within our linear range. Again, that was developed during your method validation phase. And the concentration should be 80 to 120% of your sample. We're going to do 5 of those injections. And those 5 injections we're going to use to calculate out the average area. We're going to calculate the standard deviation of that area. And we're going to calculate out the relative standard deviation of that area, or RSD. Next, we're going to run some sample injections. Those sample injections need to be within the linear range developed during your method validation. We're going to inject those twice, 2 times at least, so that way we can get a good average of our area. And then if there are multiple peaks in there, make sure that the resolution on those peaks is good. You don't want to have co-eluting or shouldered peaks. We want them to be very nice and different. You can run blanks in between samples if you want, but it's not necessary. Next is our QC check. Our QC check is not a standard, so you can't use your standard as your QC check. It has to be a different concentration other than your standard. And what it's going to do is it's going to check to see, is your standard giving you the concentration calculations that it's supposed to using this QC check. Then you're going to run what's called a bracket standard. So at the very end, the last thing you run is the second to last thing you're going to run is your bracket standard. So it's going to be an injection of your standard again. It's to ensure that your standard signal hasn't changed, hasn't dropped out, hasn't increased. There's no carryover, anything like that. So we do a bracket standard just to make sure. And that standard is going to be wrapped in, and you're going to calculate your average area. You're going to calculate your standard deviation and your RSD, this time using 6 injections rather than 5. And then finally, it's good practice to end with a blank just to make sure that the system is clean for the next user. We don't want to leave that dirty. Here is a sample summary report of the system suitability test that we just discussed. This report was for amino acid analysis in supplements. The report breaks down all of the data by peaks of interest, in this case, glutamine and leucine. The report shows the 5 standard injections grouped together and the 2 sample injections grouped as well. The report calculates the average for retention time and area, the standard deviation for each, and also the percent RSD for each. The concentration for the standard is manually entered when creating the report, but the concentration of the sample is calculated from the standard concentration, the standard area, and the sample area. Again, this is just an example of this report, and this report can be customized to fit your institution's needs. Please like and subscribe, and make sure to click the bell icon to receive more content from Lucidity.